Hello and welcome to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Chris and welcome back, guys. We've had a couple of potties this week. It all seems to be kicking off. Pre-season for 2024 is here and we are excited. So thanks for joining us. Look, I suppose since we last had a chat, we got a little bit more information about how the season's unfolding. More trades, a little bit of tension amongst the community, I would say. Um, I would just sort of like to lead with just saying a couple of things. First and foremost, I used to get upset about stuff like that, and now I don't because you can't control it. It's different. Yes, every season is different. I think we just have to adapt to the fact that it's not going to be or ever going to be like the Supercoach of old. So the old hats and the really passionate players, the Twitter community and the Discords and Slacks and all that sort of stuff, they are a very vocal minority of people who play the game of Supercoach. They do not take up the majority. And unfortunately, it is a numbers game. It's just like the TV rights and the push for the AFL to have a night grand final. All of that sort of stuff is because of numbers. It's because they can make more money selling higher sponsorships or higher TV rights if they get more people watching the game or people playing the game. How do they do that? Higher engagement. And how do they do that? One of the easiest ways is definitely more trades. Now, there are obviously other methods of trying to achieve higher engagement, but this is definitely the easiest way in a platform that they have already created that doesn't cost any money. If they were to go and create all these other things or different mechanisms within this Supercoach app, etc., that costs time and money that they probably don't have. So I can understand that they're trying to work within the limits to appease the casual fans. Look, at the end of the day, us guys, the guys watching this generally, us content creators, we're going to play anyway, regardless. It's not going to matter. We might kick up a stink and whinge and moan and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, round one's coming and I'm having my Supercoach team in. So really, does it really matter if I agree or not? And so I've just compartmentalized that to, even though, yes, I don't think it's optimal in terms of how the game I think or I want to play, but I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to try and adapt to it and change to it. And this year, I've taken that approach. Previous years, if you've followed me for a while, you would know that I've been very vocal. And I've been pretty zipped up this preseason. So let's go to how we think 40 trades plays out and what we think happens. So I've modified my team slightly because more trades technically means more actions. You can look at it a variety of ways. A trade used to be worth X value. Now a trade is worth less value. Do you really have to wait for 150k and sit on a person, or can you make a quick 100k and flip them and flip them into someone else and make another 100k and so on and so forth? There are a little bit more nuances to what you can do with 40 trades than what you have done in the past. I think that really successful fantasy players will find that this adaptation really, really quite easy. And if you break it down, if that's 2 trades per week over, that's 20 rounds, and most people don't trade in the first 2 weeks anyway. So you get, basically it's fantasy light at this point. So those approaches to how you would play might be more relevant this year than any other year. And I want to take advantage of that. I know others aren't looking to do that. I've maintained, and if you saw our last podcast, there's basically 3 ways to play this game this year. One is, if you just want to relax, pick the best player in their possible line and build the best possible team you can, that is one way to play. And you start with Dacos, you start with Bont, you start with all your top line premiums, and you just go nuts. The second part is what I like to do, which is I'm going to be aggressive with my trades, trade around the buys, try and maximize points where I can, and try and get value where I can in my team, and try and get the best possible team as early as possible, but also it's going to score the most points. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Do I think that my team will be the better team than the other team come round 24? No, but hopefully I've made enough points along the journey because I haven't waited to upgrade, or I haven't, or I started with a slightly higher points per game team, and that's bridged the gap. Now, unfortunately, that didn't happen to me last year. Last year, I ended up having some pretty bad premiums come in and some donuts because we had a lot of injuries in the back end of the year that all hit me. I ended up, after being basically top 1,000 the whole year, I ended up sliding all the way to, I think, almost 3,000. So I did a little exercise the other day. A mate of mine asked, what's your 3-year average of rank? And it works out, it's 2,450. So not terrible, but not ideal. And the last 3 years, I've been way more aggressive than how I used to play Supercoach. When it was limited trades, I found that better because I was stopped essentially from making bad decisions, because you could always get bailed out by just trading them out because you had more trades, right? Now, back in the day, I used to be very conservative with my trades, very planned, very thoughtful, and I've sort of bridged out of that. Now, with this higher risk comes not necessarily a better rank, but it could be. I think it's more of a chance of winning this way if you get it all right than just being with the pack. I think most of the pack will be in that first column of get your best optimal team and try and upgrade it long term. The third way of playing is obviously a little bit of a hybrid where you try and get your value, but you're also trying to be conservative with your trades. You're not necessarily buy flipping. You might be playing, I'm not going to play any round zero players at all in my team, and that way I'm going to maximize points that way. So there are multiple way of doing it, but that is how I am looking at this team here that I've got. Is the most mid-price that it's looked all season. And so I wanted to share it with you because it has changed, obviously, from my previous team, and I want to make some discussion points. There are some, of course, that haven't changed, and those players, honestly, they're probably not going to change. I would suggest that most of the premiums here that I have in this team aren't going anywhere. So let's rattle those guys off. The first one is Sicily, still hasn't left my team. So an update on Sicily is that he is participating in the kick-out drills sometimes, but they're also using Josh Weddle at kick-outs. Ammon, not so much, though he is in the half-back line. But Sicily, if he's not taking the kick-out, he is their first receiver from the kick-out, which was the same last year. So what they did last year was, even if Sicily wasn't taking the kick-out, he'd be the one they'd look to get the ball into his hands from the first possession in. He'd usually stand really, really deep, wide in the 50 for a kick receive, and then long down the line or whatever it may be. Points gold, right? So Sicily's not going anywhere. Hayden Young not going anywhere. So no second premium, no Stewart, no Dacos here in this position. Young, again, not going anywhere, has participated in mid-drills all preseason, not even a hint of going back behind the ball. And like I just suggested, Josh Weddle is the one that comes into here. So this is the first mid-price solution that I'm looking at. With him playing halfback and dominating those kickouts, there's definitely a role for him there. Second year breakout, yes, this might be a really early call. It's probably the most uncomfortable mid-price selection I have in my team. But if the role is there, I'm not going to ignore it. So, yeah. Look, I think we all experienced Josh Weddle last year in terms of his scoring capacity. So we know that the scoring's there. He's a great user. He positions himself well. He can push up to the wing. He's got a booming boot on him as well. Can kick a goal. I think he's a keeper? Probably not. But I think that he can average well enough with the right role to make 100 grand to be a stepping stone. And that's what I'm looking at from this position right now. So we'll see how we go through it. But that's my first mid-pricer. The rest of the rookies really haven't changed. Zach Williams comes into this spot here at D4. And then we've got Gibcus. Again, all systems go for Gibcus. And then bench rook, it's essentially bench rookies. So we've got Marty Hoare. Again, if he gets a role, which looks like he might, has a good scoring capacity. So you want him on your field. I've got Toby Pink on the bench. Again, it looks like he's firming at fullback position at North, and Caulfield again. Now, there are other defensive rookies, so these aren't the only ones, but these are ones that I think have the best scoring capacity in their roles. Now, moving on to midfield. So here's where it gets shifty. So I want to chasing value is important, and so I want to maintain that I do that. The big thing for me is these guys haven't left. So the first one is Butters. Has not left my team. Doesn't look like he will leave my team. Goodbye. Great scoring output. Almost won the Brownlow last year. Could potentially win it this year with if he gets even a even bigger bump in CBA percentages. Here's where it starts to get interesting. 40 trades means and a large percentage of ownership, right? So Luke Davies-Uniacke is in 18% of teams. Last year, I was burned by him multiple times. Laid out twice I got caught with him with. Obviously with the injuries 3 times. The thing is now, at 635k, he is value because we know what his scoring output is like. In the back end of the year, he went bananas. The thing is, and he's got the potential to be M1 this season. Like that's where he stands at. So that's why there's value. If I'm going to have him, I don't want to trade into him. I don't want to do what I did last year and fade him at the start, miss his 140 and 150, and then have to bring him in. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start with him and then trade him out if I need to. So, I don't think there's any other way you can go with LDU. Either you start with him, or I don't know if you can bring him in with his body that way that it is. By all reports, he's saying that he's fit as a fiddle. I'm sure he said that last year. But it's just one to watch, and right now currently in my team. Sarong is obviously the other one. Hasn't left my team all preseason. Doesn't look like he will. And here another one. So a new one here that I'm running. So previously in the last vid, I actually ran with Josh Kelly in this position. Now I'm running with Cornelio. And there is a large reason for this. So I want to be on someone that's going to have a bump in those first 2 rounds because ultimately I really want Walsh, but I also don't want his buy in round 3. So that week, Cogs plays West Coast, I believe. And so if you have a look at his previous scoring history, so here we go. So against North, which is his round 1 opponent, he had 103 in round 13, and then the previous to that 174 and 111. So a good history of high scores, and he's a flat track bully, what we know about Cogs, right? Goal kicking mid. Last year again, 107 at West Coast, 140. 140 the year before. I mean, even against his Gold Coast points, which is the game after the bye, he's obviously got a good scoring history there too. So one thing I need to worry about with Cogs though is that what's his role going to be this year? So this is a preseason watch. I think in this team I do have the money to be able to get Tom Green, but I want to be able to try and get value and make a bit of cash. So there is one price rise that will happen here. The other game that they have is against the Pies, obviously, in round 0. And so they actually will get a price adjustment at the West Coast game at the conclusion of that. So I think it's more likely. And here's the other thing with Tom Green. He actually doesn't have a flat track bully record. So against the shitter teams, he actually doesn't score very well. So you're either got to go down the line of Cornelio or you got to go down the line of Kelly. I have considered Toby Green as someone there. I think that North's backline's decimated. West Coast not so much, and it is at Optus, so there is that. But they are West Coast, so there's every chance that anything could happen, and Toby Green could kick a bag. But ultimately, I think this is the safest bet right now. Stephen Cornelio. The idea again: monitor Walsh, monitor Neil, monitor Dunkley, and flip to one of those guys after their early bye. Okay. Now the last mid spot that I've got. So I'm going 5 deep in midfield. So this team, unfortunately, doesn't include the traditional guys that I've been on. So I've taken out Ammon because rumour has it he's lost the kickouts in this preseason and gone to Weddle, as mentioned earlier. If he doesn't have that, that's a large points loss. Like that 107 average might go down 10 points per game, and now he's only averaging 97 and not worth considering at his price. Matt Crouch is still someone that I'm really, really interested in, and I'm trying a bunch of different ways to be able to get him in my team. But at this stage, I think I need to try and capitalize on value. And this is where I go Clayton Oliver. So let's have a chat about Clayton Oliver, guys. He's obviously had a large amount of turmoil. I want to just talk about Clayton Oliver, the footballer, for right now. 4 years running, 120 average plus. 4 years. He's only 26 years of age. So technically, this is only his prime from now moving forward. He has primary mid minutes in a top 4 midfield. And it doesn't look... In multiple preseasons where he's had injuries, he's come out and just gone bang. He's had both shoulder reconstructed in the same off season. Came back in round one and went bang. Broke his hand the week before round one and went bang. Like, he doesn't care. Like, the shorter preseason doesn't really worry me with him. I'm worried about this, the emergence of soft tissues with his body obviously last year and his rehab. What I will just say is that if he plays round one, they might give him a round zero off. If he plays round one, then I don't think there's a world that I can't start him, because at 674, I don't remember the last time you saw Clary under 650k. He very rarely falls under that mark. So at best, I'm looking for 25k value. There's huge upside at his pick. There's M1 upside. There's I'm as good as Bontempelli upside in that pick, and for 50k less. So yeah, very interesting, Clayton Oliver, and currently I'm going with that as my option there. Again, still chasing value, but getting a good scorer in the meantime. Here's where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. So again, in this previous position, I had either Ammon or Crouch. I don't have the money for those guys. I'm actually going with Nat Fyfe here. Again, from all reports, dominating preseason. This is a cash grab play. All I'm really looking for from Nat Fyfe is the first 6 weeks, make 100, 120 grand, and then see you later. I don't think his body will be able to hold the current role that they're floating for him, which is as going back into the midfield. Now, do I think that he's going to be a 70% midfielder? No. I think somewhere between 50 to 60% CBAs makes sense with him floating forward, and that should be enough for, say, a 90 to 95 average, right? Now, if that's the case, then he's actually a keeper. So there's a potential that he becomes a keeper, obviously. Nat Fyfe, we know, is scoring prowess. That's not an issue. But I don't think I need to look at it that way. I'm not picking because he's definitely has keeper potential, but I'm picking him as a cash cow and as someone I can make cash with quickly and then move him on. If it turns out that he's a keeper, great. If it turns out that he gets knocked out or injured or whatever, bang, off he goes. See you later. Hopefully he's made some good cash by then. Now, and then of course we go with the same rookies that seem to be burning the track up. So McKerch is still in here, of course, and Riley Sanders as well. Those guys are killing it. On the bench, again, these guys haven't changed really too much. We still have Sharp, Jeremy of the Jeremy variety, Jai Clark, and here I've gone with Sean Manor to fit in an extra forward, Ricky, because there's quite a few of them. Over here. All right, now moving on to the ruck line. This hasn't changed at all. I don't think this is going to change for me, but Gawn and Grundy, like, I'm just not going to worry about it. 2 value selections. I'm not going to get any better. Cherry's done. He's having knee surgery. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks. So if you're considering the Cherry option, you can run a line through that because he's going to have an interrupted preseason now, and I wouldn't be touching that. I'm going with Colin Livingston. So he has much better fixture early on as a loophole option. Compared to Finbar Malley. And obviously Sweet will be in this position, and I will try and get him in if he becomes number 1 ruck. I personally don't think there's a chance of that. I think they run 1 ruck. I don't think they even run 2 rucks. I think they run 1 ruck and Finlay McRae, or for whatever it may be. Moving on to the next one. So obviously the forward line, not too dissimilar. I've gone with McRae here. I have got onto the Flanders train. I don't know if Flanders was in my last team, but he is now. This is definitely going to be a round 0 watch. If he does have the role that we need him to have and as an midfield accumulator, then absolutely fantastic. I'm going to love that. If he doesn't, then he's gone. And look, I could probably easily go down to Taylor Adams or find the cash to go up to a Luke Jackson type or a Shai Bolton, depending on his role as well. Now, moving on there, Fisher, so another mid-price option. There was a bit of... he came off the track with a hamstring concern, had scans. They just said it was awareness, not even a grade 1 issue. So he's back in my team currently. Harms, we spoke about on the last podcast. I think of all of the 250 guys, he's probably the one that is the highest potential with the best role. But it could be Billings, could be... a couple of other options as well. at that around that range. Billings was spotted in the intra club today playing wing, but Hunter was out. So is that going to be his role moving forward? What does it look like? Luckily, we have round 0 to find that out. So that's all good. Harley Reid, obviously, playing a half back, could be a potential keeper. And Finn McRae, so huge raps on Finn McRae so far this preseason. They're basically all but locked him into a starting spot round 1. I think you've got to try and squeeze him in. My concern is that I would like to have him potentially move to F7 and not necessarily on field because he's a sub-out option and he's also a potential sub option as a 23rd player. So he may not be the best on-field scorer, but if you can get him to your bench, then great. If not, then that's fine. And here I've got... So Wilson I've heard good things about, but right now I'm going with Aaron Cabman. Again, those 2 early fixtures. I think that he's got an opportunity there to really make some good early cash with some 80s or 90s because of the opposition that he plays early on in the season. And I've still got Sam Darcy in that last spot. By all reports, playing really well. Is playing forward. So it could be a position where I only go one of these guys and go with a Wilson as well. The amount of cash that I have left in here is 85 grand. So there is opportunity to move Livingston up to Sweet or Cabman up to maybe even a Nick Watson or something like that. These are all speculatives. Rookies are really not there. Could I go Clayton Oliver up to Bont? Yeah, I mean, sure, if I really wanted to, but like, why? That's not a value selection. If I was so head set on Bont M1 that I didn't want to avoid it, then maybe that is what happens with Oliver. Maybe he doesn't play round 1, and I go, okay, well, let's go with Bont, and that's how my team lines up. But either way, the one problem I'm finding with this whole setup here is essentially it's only 11 premiums. So if you count them up, you get 2 in defence, 5 in the midfield, 2 in the ruck, and then 2 forward. Traditionally, 12 has been the go-to mark. So I don't know if this is going to be enough and this mid-price strategy is going to work. I can use this 85 grand. I'm hoping to be able to use that to maybe, if Weddle makes, say, 100 grand, throw another 85 on. Hopefully, I can get Dacos in round 6 really easily or something like that. There's ways of making cash within this team to be able to generate early upgrades. But, at this point, I am quite worried about the 11. But with the extra trades, it gives you a little bit more freedom. And I know this is a bit of a different team, but I wanted to share it with you guys, so I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a comment. Let me know what your team's looking like at the moment. If you need any help, I'm always here. I know this was a bit of a longer one, but thanks for having us, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers, guys. Bye.